Nation. Welcome to another edition of Q the Woodshed, Williams Incorporated. I'm Ken. This is my good brother Brian. How's it going, sir?
Good to be back. It was as long as he wins, a good time.
Yes. So, Spartan fans, Spartan Nation, we got our first game under the belt against those fighting Chippewas of Central Michigan University. So, we did win the game, 31-7. What are your initial reactions, initial thoughts from what you saw?
It was a tale of two halves. You know, the first half was not very good. It felt like a lot of the same stuff we saw from last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not gonna lie, I almost had my Twitter fingers out there saying starting to GoFundMe, pack all their bags, get them out of here. But they came out into the second quarter, second half. It looked like a better coached football team. Everybody looked more comfortable and confident. And we got the victory, and that was the most important thing.
Right.
And it looked better, looked improved in several areas so far. But I want to preface this by saying, I know it's just Central Michigan. I know it's a MAC team, and I'm not going to get too high, but I did see some things that I like more good than bad.
Okay, I agree with you on that. It's funny because I had a good friend of mine who was actually at the game, and he sent me a picture of him way up in Spartan Stadium, all smiles. And then by the end of the first quarter, that smile turned to a frown. So to your point, yeah, definitely started out a little shaky. But as the time went on and we got to the end of the fourth quarter, all smiles, like you said. I do agree that the Spartans looked good as the game progressed. Especially in the second half. That first quarter was pretty brutal. And I was like you, I was like, okay, here we go again.
The first 28 minutes were brutal. Until Central Michigan scores that touchdown, and then State comes back immediately and scores, it was like, okay. Because the offense had been looking really shaky.
Yeah.
Defense started off a little shaky, but you could tell them they was settling in and getting better, mid first quarter.
Right.
But then the offense was taking a long time. And we'll get into it because they were more good than bad for me, but there was some bad.
Oh yeah. With the first game, there's always going to be some bad. And things usually may start out on the bad end, but they come out on the good end. So, that's all that really matters.
I think we have to keep in mind that, I have to tell myself this as well because I can be very emotional watching the games, that there are a lot of new players in new positions that have never been relied upon at Spartan Stadium or for the team yet.
Right.
And so you saw a lot of, maybe some things are uncharacteristic of some players because this is their first game.
Right.
And so we have to give them some grace for that. And it's easy to say that when you're not watching the game because you just want your team to go out there and just, put it to Central.
Right.
But, they got there, but, it's a process.
It is. And these first games, people expect for their teams to just, smash, ground, pound into their opponent, into the dirt, depending on who the opponent is.
Yes.
But, yeah, like you said, there's, a grace period, first game jitters, et cetera. So, I understand your point. Speaking of points, now let's get into our good Sparty, bad Sparty segment.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, as usual, we'll start out with the bad.
They like to get the bad out the way and then go to the good stuff.
Right. So, yeah, as we were talking, first game jitters, that's definitely on the bad side, like you said, or a lot of new players that were playing their first big game. Difference coming from fall camp to actual game time.
Yes.
So even with the quarterback, Noah Kim, we did get a glimpse of him last year, here and there. But this
mop up duty, we were getting blown out and he got caught in the service a couple times. So, but he looks good in his service then. But then we got this the first time we've seen him. So
right. So first game jitters, definitely. Also, as we talked about, bad first half. Specifically for me, I think that first quarter, definitely brutal. I mean, it was like, okay. I think if I remember, the first quarter ended, was it 0-0?
It was 0-0, but Central Michigan was in scoring position.
Right.
And they had somebody wide open in the end zone with the quarterback slipped down. We got to consider it a sack for us. But they ran like a kind of a trick play, and the guy was open after we had gotten a penalty to give them a whole new fresh set of downs.
Yeah.
And so
I remember that.
The first quarter was something to forget.
Yeah. And if I remember too, I think in the first quarter we went for it on fourth down.
Got stuffed.
So
Shades of last year. And that has to go under bad Sparty. We can talk about some of the play calling.
Yeah.
And some of the decisions that were made. I don't think it's all on Jay Johnson all the time. I think there were some execution issues. But for the second year in a row, we're 4th and 1, 3rd and short, and you can't get any movement, you can't get any push. It seems like an offensive lineman or a tight end, someone always misses a block, someone gets beat, and we get stuffed.
Right.
And that shouldn't happen versus Central Michigan. So that's a potential red flag we can keep in the back of our minds.
Right.
Because if you can't push for 1 yard versus Central, what are you going to do when you get to the big boys in the Big Ten?
Exactly. Bringing that point up, but there's something that popped in my head. So when we talk about those type of plays, is it more on the offensive coordinator, or do you think the offensive line coach when it comes to those type of stances, not getting the push that's needed?
It
Could be both.
It could be a combination because it could be the play call and the players. Maybe the play call doesn't fit what your players can actually do.
Okay.
And I think that could be an issue. But again, we're talking about 1 yard versus a MAC team. It shouldn't take rocket scientists for us to move the pile.
Right.
But
Ground and pound.
It didn't happen. I think they stuck us twice on 4th down.
Yeah, they did.
So that's like it's a concern to keep that in the back of my mind.
Right.
For the rest of the season.
Right. I think another issue was the inaccuracy of Noah Kim at times. Because there were a couple of plays where he was kind of like throwing the ball to who? Just kind of sailed over the receiver's head.
Yeah, we didn't know who. There's a couple passes I didn't know who was the intended receiver.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know if that was a miscommunication. We're gonna chalk it up to first game jitters because this only happened in the first half.
Right.
Second half, Kim became him. He was the guy. But that first half definitely some accurate passes. I don't think his decision making was bad, but there's several passes I know he wish he'd had back.
Yeah. And there were some drop passes too, so like you said, it's not all on Noah Kim. I think Trey Mosley dropped a couple passes. Malik Carr, he was a little shaky, beginning of the game.
Yes.
But yeah, there were some drop passes there that contributed to, Noah's inaccuracy at times. But those some things that I noticed as well. And also too, those penalties. Ooh boy, those penalties.
It just
Especially with the face mask. I think there are about 3 to 4 face mask penalties alone.
Speaking of Central Michigan's lone touchdown, it came on back-to-back face mask penalties. So that's 30 yards of penalties right there. And then they had I think the QB had broke away from almost getting sacked, and he got the face mask and the yards he gets. So that's what put them in business to get that touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, but again, it's the same old stuff from last year, far too many penalties. But we can say the first game, everything's not all buttoned up. I would have liked to see them more buttoned up in terms of penalties and some execution. But again, like we talked about, people are in new positions the first time. We can give them some grace for now.
Right. One thing that I put on the bad Sparty list was the intentional grounding call. And I put it on the bad Sparty list because to me, I think the refs made that call, which to me didn't seem like it needed to be called. I mean, because of the way that the play developed, it looked like Kim was under duress. He just threw the ball up. And also, too, I think maybe there's some miscommunication between him and the receiver he was, throwing the ball to. But to call that intentional grounding, and I get it, it's probably in the rule book to do that. But to me, I'm like, that's kind of a suspicious call.
Yes, because he wasn't in. I don't remember the play correctly. I don't think Kim was under pressure. He just threw I think the pressure was the pressure was coming towards him, but he wasn't
Under
duress.
Okay.
And he throws the ball to I think the right hash mark, and Malik Carr had cut inside. I cut his rod off early, and they called it intentional grounding. It was a clear miscommunication.
Right.
But like you said, by the letter of the law, probably is intentional grounding. But it goes towards the penalties. You can't have that.
True.
Can't have the miscommunication that caused the penalty.
Right.
Can't have the false starts. You can't have. I don't think there's any holding calls against Michigan State. We had a couple of false starts that derailed a couple of drives, but
yeah, there weren't any holding calls. I don't think. I believe Central had most of the holding penalties, but the face masks and that intentional grounding. Yeah, those were some like, okay, gotta clean that up, boys. Gotta clean that up.
First game though, so I'm trying to give them some grace.
Right. We're not saying all this to beat up on our squad. We're not, but as fans, from a fan's perspective, this is what we saw. So
gotta keep it objective.
Keep it objective. I say keep it 100. So another thing, and this is not necessarily on Michigan State, but the commentary. I know that, the Big Ten, they switched their media deal to Fox, NBC, and CBS. But the commentary, man, how many more times are they going to mention Mel Tucker's contract?
I think I brought it up on the last episode that they're going to sneak it in there because there's already been a narrative established about Michigan State. And part of it's on, the performance of the team. 5-7, not good. COVID year, not good. Had one good year. But to mix it all in to say, Mel Tucker gets paid this amount of money and he's on the hot seat. I'm like, well, if you're going to look at his contract, you would know, he's not in the hot seat this year because they're not going to pay all that money for the buyout. Next year would be the hot seat year. Completely. Like, okay, 5 years in, you haven't looked good. I think that's enough because it should take you, after year 5, your program is what your program is. And that's what you've established. But to constantly bring up his contract as something to base his performance on, I understand that, okay, he's paid a good amount of money and he's paid to win. But no matter what money he's paid, that's his job is to win.
Right.
So if he was making $95 million over 10 years or 10 cents over 10 years, he has to win. And I think the contract should be a mute point to that. Like, judge him on the wins loss, not because he got a big contract. Because I feel like if Michigan State didn't give this big contract and he just had his regular deal that he had that was originally in place, this wouldn't be a narrative thing.
Right.
But since he's a black guy who get paid all this money, and it was a shock that Michigan State ponied up to keep someone that we had an 11-win season. That was a great year, right?
Right.
He was being rumored to leave. Now, if Michigan State lets Mel Tucker leave, now, look at Sparty, you can't pay your head coach.
Right.
Now, Michigan State pays the head coach, now it becomes a thing. And it's just very annoying. And we're going to have to deal with it until he starts winning.
Agreed. Yeah, people don't realize that 2 years ago, when he was doing his thing, 11-2, had that significant win against Michigan, especially the way they came back. There were a lot of people coming after him. LSU was reported to, trying to persuade him to leave to go to them. There was some overtures from the NFL about Mel Tucker.
Trying to bring him back.
Yeah, because Mel Tucker did have some coaching experience in the NFL at some point. So what is Michigan State supposed to do? I mean, when you're winning and you have other people coming after you, I was supposed to sit there and say, I think we'll just ride it out, see what happens. Or do you say, hey, here's the Brinks truck. Mel, we need you. Come on in.
Like I said, he just has to win. And that's the biggest thing. if Michigan State has a decent record, I'm not to make 8-9 wins, and then next year they're competing for the Big Ten championship, they can't say anything because all right, that's what you want from your head coach. That's all you can ask for.
Right.
At this point, we know where Michigan State was at. We've seen the heights and we've seen the lows, and we want to get back to the heights.
Right.
And to get back to the heights, you got to spend that money.
You do. That's part of the game.
I mean, who else are you going to get for head coach? And people forget how Mel Tucker even became Michigan State head coach after D'Antonio leaves in February of 2020. And we had to kind of scramble, but that's rehashing everything. Say it one more time. He has to win.
Yeah.
Just has to win. Wins and losses, baby.
Right. That's right. So, enough of the bad. Let's get to the good.
Yes, the good.
We won the game.
Always,
31-7.
always a good thing.
Despite the fact that everything, the halftime, the first half, that came out to be what it was. MSU did come on in the second half. They looked like a very good team on both sides of the ball, and they pretty much just mauled Central Michigan into the dirt.
They covered the spread, and I should have put some money down. I think it was 14.5 was the spread. They covered it, so that's good. One of the things that stood out, even in the beginning of the game, Nathan Carter.
Yes.
He looked like the guy. He looked like the running back we needed.
Right.
Now, it was really, in that first play of the game, I was thinking, is he going to take it to the house?
I know.
It was close. He was this close.
Reminiscent of Kenneth Walker.
But he doesn't have
that Walker speed.
That next gear, which is fine because no one, Kenneth Walker is himself. He can't
Right.
He can duplicate that. But he looked good. I think both running backs that played, Berger looked nice as well.
He did.
Especially with catching the ball. He had a couple of really nice catches. He had one-handed. He had to reach out. Came through a little bit too far, but Berger reached out, caught the ball. I think got an 8-yard game, and that set up another touchdown. And so the offensive line, they did create some holes. Running backs ran through. They had decent enough vision. Can't be too mad at it. But again, I know it's just Central, but it was good to see the running backs hit the holes and make plays.
Right. And the defensive line looked good too. I mean, they took their lumps in the first half, but in the second half they looked a lot better because they were getting to the quarterback, which was something we didn't see that much last year. And, I think to the point where when Central had to switch quarterbacks.
Well, the game was out there. It was over by then, but yes. One thing about the defensive line, and we had talked about the depth being on both sides of the lines, you got to see rotation, defensive linemen.
Mm-hmm.
You saw everybody do a little bit of something.
Right.
You had your starters out there, the defensive ends, Zion Young and Chris Bogle, they had their plays. You had your defensive tackles make plays, Simeon Barrow, Derek Harmon, the transfer from Colorado, I think that's Sammy.
Yeah.
They showed up.
Right.
You saw them pop at least a little bit. And it was good to see that them control the game eventually. But okay, I feel like the defense settled in mid first quarter. They started looking better.
Mm-hmm.
They adjusted to the misdirection of Central, and by halftime they completely shut them down.
Right. Right. Yeah, the defensive backs look very physical too.
Yes,
They look very physical.
I think we're really starting to see these are Tucker's guys. All three new defensive, all the defensive backs are all Tucker's guys. It's all his recruits. You saw them, a lot of people, message board guys, myself included, talk about the scheme of them being too far back off the receivers
Mm-hmm.
and giving too much of a cushion. Now, that's not uncommon. They do a lot in the NFL, but those are NFL guys.
Right.
So now you're starting to see the defensive backs who can, all right, the ball is caught, they can make that move and go tackle that guy right away.
Yeah.
You didn't see a lot of catches for that. Someone's just wide open, they can run 10 more yards. It was catch, hit.
Mm-hmm.
You saw Tatum come down bad intentions a few times and tackle people. Malik Spencer, I think he's going to be a star. You saw him stick his nose down there a lot. Then you saw a couple of near pass breakers, maybe interceptions by Mangum, Jaden Mangum, the younger brother of Jaren, who didn't play. But yeah, the defensive backs, I thought that was a plus. Didn't see them communication bust. We didn't see too many huge big plays to the passing. So that's always good. But I do have to preface it by saying again, it's just Central Michigan, but there were some good things. There's some hope there. So
Yeah.
we'll continue to see. Hopefully, we'll continue to see growth.
Yeah, and the receivers, Glover, Tyrell Henry, those guys look like they can be some bona fide stars.
Yeah, young talent. And then again, we've been hearing talk about these guys can make plays. And I know we lost a tremendous talent in Keon Coleman, but we have some people.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And it started off a little shaky, but the receivers that dropped the pass was Trace Mosley and then Malik Carr.
But Carr came on too.
Carr came on later on.
He came on
Metaphor had a fantastic catch for a touchdown. There's a lot of excitement there, and you can see that. Okay, these are big play guys. We had some 70-yard passes. We had huge plays on the receiving, and that was encouraging.
Yeah. One thing I liked too in the second half was seemed like the rhythm of the offense was getting there, because it was, like we said, in the first half it wasn't there, but the second half, it was relatively quick.
Yes.
Kim didn't have to think; he just passed the ball, threw the ball, and it resulted in, those several touchdowns.
Speaking of good Spartan, you got to talk about Noah Kim.
Oh yeah,
he had a heck of a game.
He did.
He started off very not great, very shaky. Once he gets settled in, you look at his stats. He almost passed for 300 yards.
Oh, okay.
I think it was 270 something.
Okay.
So if we get back 2 of those drops, 300 yards passing.
Yeah.
He didn't. I don't remember any passes that seemed real dangerous or that could have been intercepted or him trying to do too much.
Right.
He went out there after a couple of wibble wobbles and inconsistency passes. He put it together. It was exciting to see. I feel like, at least for right now, we're okay at quarterback.
Right.
We will see as the season progresses. I know, we have our real big test is Washington in week 3. That's the game that I think is the
barometer.
Yes, we can see where we're really at.
Right.
Because you can't learn a whole lot about playing teams that you should beat that are considered not as talented, as good as you.
Right.
But we saw beginning of last year that there were issues in those first 2 games.
Definitely.
So I remember we talked about it, and I was like, I know we won 50-something to whatever versus Akron, but it didn't look good.
Nothing. Yeah.
It did not look good. There were a lot of things on offense and defense that was very shaky.
Right.
I didn't get that vibe after the first half
right.
of this game.
Right. And Noah Kim seemed to be pretty poised overall. He wasn't having the happy feet. He seemed to be pretty comfortable in the pocket. And whenever a play didn't go his way, he wasn't all, You
didn't see the kind of blow-ups.
Right.
I feel like a couple times last year you would see the frustration leak over in our previous quarterback. It's understandable. He's human.
Right.
Things that go your way has been bad, a lot of pressure on you. You can have an outburst here and there, but we didn't see that from Kim. And I honestly, as bad as the first half was going, I was thinking they're probably going to pull him and we're going to see Caton Hauser. But I'm glad the coaching staff stuck with him and we got to see what they saw or what they have been seeing in Noah Kim.
Right.
So I think we have something there. He's a pretty good arm too, because that Hail Mary threw at the end of the first half, that was the 39-yard. He threw that 60 yards in the air. It was a nice pass. Now someone's face mask could have been caught, but again, we saw the arm talent at least.
Yeah, and that Hail Mary, I think if Trey Mosley, because he's in that vicinity, I kind of felt that if Mosley was maybe more close to the ball, he could have caught it.
Yeah, that's kind of tough.
But
because Montorie Foster got up there for it, but just hit him in his face mask and he couldn't catch it. But it was a heck of a throw.
It was. I was really surprised about Kim's arm strength.
You've only heard about it. That's the first time you get to see it.
Right.
And I'll say this too. He hit a lot of receivers in stride with those long passes. So I feel like some of the times last season, it would be like a jump ball type pass, and you got the receiver have to stop and come forward.
Mm-hmm.
But with those long passes to Jerron Glover and the ones Christian Fitzpatrick, I thought the long passes.
Oh, long pass. Okay.
Long passes.
Okay.
Christian Fitzpatrick, These guys are out there making their turn, and the ball is there instead of them having to come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's going to help out the offensive line because that can help with yards at the catch.
Right. Should we talk about the coordinators? What do you say? Good Sparty, bad Sparty first half, good Sparty second half?
I would say for the defense overall, Hazleton, I would say put that in the good Sparty category.
Okay.
I thought that they were tight. They looked like they knew what they were doing. You didn't see any miscommunications. They had to adjust to what Central was doing in terms of their misdirection. But once they did that, they completely shut them down.
Mm-hmm.
You start seeing more hits in the backfields, tackles for loss. You didn't see any big plays given up through the air because everybody was killing us through the air last year.
Yes.
So definitely Hazleton goes in the good Sparty. Jay Johnson, I'm I'm not sure because I don't know what our offensive game plan is. And it seems like there's what he wants to do, and then there seems like what the team can do, and there hasn't been a complete meshing of that. I don't think a lot of the play calls specifically were bad. I just think the timing of the play calls were questionable.
Okay.
I don't like the big play, let's run tempo to do the same handoff run play to get 1 or 2 yards or a tackle for a loss. It's a throwaway down.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather, if you're going to go up tempo, I'd rather go up tempo, get to the line, see how they're lined up, check, and then, run your play from there. But with just to line up and then just do the same handoff every time, it's nonsensical.
Yeah.
Really can't blame him, Jay Johnson, for the 4th and 1 calls because you should be able to move a MAC team 1 yard off the ball and get your first down. So I can't blame him for that. There were some curious 3rd down, wide receiver tunnel screens that were called that didn't work the whole game. I don't know because it didn't work. I didn't like it. So overall, I'll put Jay Johnson in the unknown Sparty category.
The unknown Sparty category.
I think there's what Mel Tucker and Jay Johnson wishes Michigan State offense was versus what they actually are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're at a point yet where we can just line up and just smash teams. We don't have those people. I don't know if we ever will. So I feel like Michigan State needs to have an offense that's more tailored to scheming people open. One of the criticisms I've seen online a lot about Jay Johnson is the lack of pre-snap motion, especially amongst the receivers. Normally where the receivers line up, that's where they're at. Now, I did notice they did a lot of shifting of tight ends, moving around. That seemed all well and good. But I would like to see more from the offense. And that, I don't think that's too much to ask. I don't think he's terrible or anything. I just feel like I don't know what the game plan is ever.
Right.
It's like a mixed bag.
Do you think that's a function of the opponent that they have to face?
Again, I don't know because we've been seeing this for the last 3 years now. It's hard to say. Because I don't know. You watch the Michigan State games, outside of the Kenneth. Well, let's take last year. They don't know what the identity is. What are they trying to do?
Mm-hmm.
And so that gets very frustrating because you see something that works, and they just keep on doing it. I think of the description I saw somebody say on the message board I'm subscribed to. They called it Warner's spread offense. And Warner, the previous
from the Antonio days.
When they basically took the same offense they've been running, but they just put it in shotgun formation and went out there and it's the same stuff. I was like, okay. I think that's kind of what we're seeing now. And this has been a criticism of Jay Johnson that I've heard when he first was hired. He's not the most cohesive offensive coordinator. Now, he schemes some great plays up here and there. Not even here and there. Every game, he there's a play that happens. Oh, that's a very nice play.
Right.
but it's inconsistent in terms of like the regular play call. So we'll see. We have to just wait and see. And I'm the jury's not out yet on them. I know it's a contract year, so he's going to have to show something. Defense looks better. Offense, still some questions play calling wise.
Now, one thing I've read and heard is that at the beginning of these football seasons for both college and pro, usually the defense is ahead of the offense in terms of their rhythm and timing and any other intricate things in regards to that. Do you think that may be an issue too with the offense that, as we talked about, first game jitters, new players, new quarterback, that Jay Johnson may have ran some plays just to kind of feel out the new players?
That's very much possible, and time will tell. We will see once we get past Richmond and into Big Ten play of what exactly we have with Jay Johnson. Because like I said, this is year 4. We'll dismiss COVID's weird year. We'll just say year 3 if you want to do it like that. Got to show us something. You have to. It's,
right.
I don't think this is we're saving the playbook for these big games type deal. I don't subscribe to that. You go out there and you run your offense.
Right.
Now you might have a few plays here and there, but for the most part, your offense is your offense. Your defense is your defense. And so, could he have been calling plays just to kind of see what makes his quarterback and his team comfortable? It's possible. I think that would kind of be a smart thing to do when you don't, using new players. But again, we're going to see.
Right. And speaking of which, our next opponent coming up is Richmond, the Richmond Spiders. I believe out of Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah, Richmond, Virginia.
That's the next opponent for our Fighting Tuckers. Next Saturday. This is a Saturday game. And do you know anything about Richmond?
They're an FCS team. I know they made the FCS playoff last year. I think they were 9-4. They seem to be a decent FCS team. But Michigan State should come out and dominate. And I think that's what everybody wants to see.
Right.
First game jitters aside, you got out there, you've seen it. Now it's time to go out there and put a team in the dirt that you're better than and show everyone like, okay, we're here.
Right.
And I know it's not going to mean a whole lot that they, run over Richmond, but it would at least show more progress. And if you have a nice, clean game, you don't have some of the penalties, you don't have some of the inaccuracies or some of the things we saw game 1, what happened in game 2, because supposedly the most growth they're going to see between a team is the first game 1 and 2.
Right.
And leading up to game 3. Because usually, college will get a preseason. So this is our preseason.
Right.
And you have to get ramped up and ready. And if they come out and don't look good versus Richmond, might have to start sounding some alarm bells.
Yep. Speaking of alarm bells, one thing that was alarming on a good note was the special teams.
Yes.
Seeing a 47-yard field goal.
I almost fell in my chair. I couldn't believe it.
I did too. Like, whoa.
When he went to, I thought we were going to punt. I was like, 47-yard field goal. I was like, he's going to miss this probably. And the guy, I think his name is Jonathan Kim is the kicker.
Yeah.
He went out there and nailed it. I said, okay, man, we got some kicker here. That could win us a few more games because there are plenty of times last season where we could have used the field goal.
Yeah.
But we couldn't do it because some ridiculousness would happen.
Right. Yeah. True.
So I think special teams was, yes, they were overall pretty good. Punt coverage was pretty good. I think on kickoff, there was one kickoff for like 40 yards of that return, and they kicked one out of bounds. But those are only 2 negatives I can remember for special teams. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised.
Right. Well, I think the special teams should perform very good against Richmond as well as everything else.
Everything should be good versus Richmond. It should be a Sparty party. If it's not, it's going to be a long season probably.
Yeah, I think MSU will take care of business next week and then prepare for the Huskies for week 3.
Whew.
But we're just going to focus on Richmond. We're not going to
On
jump the
to
schedule.
Richmond.
Right, on to Richmond. On to Richmond. So, as usual, I'd like to present some fun facts about Michigan State football. This week's fun facts is that MSU historically has put more than 300 players to the NFL draft.
Okay.
And 39 of those players have been selected in the first round. So again, the perception overall about Michigan State football is kind of lower tier, quote unquote, second class, especially, in the area that we live in.
Yes.
But MSU has put their fair share of players into the NFL. One that comes to mind is Kirk Cousins. I mean, he
wasn't a first round pick, but definitely he's been longevity.
He's been longevity. And Trey Waynes, Darquez Dennard.
The heyday of Michigan State.
Back in the no-fly zone days. So MSU does put their fair share of players into the NFL draft. Yes, MSU football, they definitely do their thing. And any parting shout-outs or anything?
Just want to get this victory. I'm so glad football's back. And as frustrating as the first half was, I'm glad to see the boys in Green out there again. The fighting Spartans, the fighting Tuckers out there. So it was good. I'm happy. I'm excited for the season, and hopefully we can surprise some more people.
I agree. Like you, I'm glad that college football is back, especially MSU football. We're ready to rock and roll. Get that bad taste of last year out of our mouth and just keep it moving. So with that, this is another edition of Cue the Woodshed, Williams Inc. I'm Ken. This is my brother Brian, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.